As the world of AV and IT converge, it's important that we recognise common language which must be used between the AV professional and the IT professional. This course will lay out the foundations for those conversations, and by the end of it, you will be able to confidently explain how the network should be laid out for your AV distribution.
The world is becoming more dependent on IP each day. According to data from IoT Analytics, it's estimated that there are already over 7 billion network devices across the globe. And that figure is expected to rise to a staggering 75 billion by 2025. Until recently, without huge amounts of compression, Ethernet was unable to provide 4K performance in the same way a proprietary matrix switch could. And while very clever compression codecs allowed Netflix's 4K signals to squeeze through tiny amounts of bandwidth, the latency trade-off made this solution a complete non-starter for Pro AV. This has allowed the matrix switch to win the AV integrator's popularity contest year after year after year. Unfortunately, this has led to a divide between the IT professional and the AV professional. They conduct their respective jobs in very different ways, and there has been little need for their paths to cross until now. IT professionals manage networks very well. They have globally accredited qualifications and huge amounts of networking knowledge which is not dependent on a specific product by a specific manufacturer. AV professionals are highly skilled in audio and video distribution, but unlike IT professionals, they have often relied on proprietary products because that's simply what's been available.
Put simply, IT professionals have usually made decisions based on standards, while AV professionals have been forced to cobble together solutions out of products without any standardization, making the task of integration extremely complex. Worse still, this integration is different for every new installation.
IT has now caught up with AV. We no longer require massive amounts of compression to send 4K video across a network, thanks to 10 gigabit Ethernet becoming the current performance standard across the IT industry. SDVoE technology enables these standard networks to provide matrix switch performance at a fraction of the cost. And better still, the expandability of this technology is only limited by the size of the network, a statement the matrix switch was never able to make. Put simply, SDVoE is a standard which makes AV an IT solution. And yet, the matrix switch is still winning those popularity contests. It's not winning them as easily as before though, because more AV professionals are realizing that the way to bridge the gap between themselves and the IT professionals is to listen to the concerns the IT professionals have, and educate themselves enough to be able to allay those concerns and focus on how they can best work together.
AV professionals tend not to have to focus heavily on the IT network because, in general, when equipment is connected to a switch, it just works. And this is because the standardization that exists in IT enforces discipline in how networks are deployed, regardless of the application. Ask any IT professional when the last time he installed a network was without any form of network topology drawing. He'll probably just laugh at you, because this just doesn't happen. In the same way, any decent AV professional would prepare a full set of project drawings. An IT professional does exactly the same thing, except he details the transportation of the packet from one host to the next, referencing protocols from the OSI stack. So many AV professionals are still way too complacent with the data networks they install, and this complacency will not only lead to failure in adopting standards which cannot be ignored, but also pave the way for IT professionals to offer far more competitive solutions thanks to their natural ability to adopt these new standards. This complacency with plug and play has actually brought the worlds of IT and AV closer together than people realise, The big three, for example, sell millions of products a day which pretty much anyone can set up and use. Even my 98-year-old grandmother can initiate a FaceTime call, and while installing SDVoE technology requires more networking knowledge than my nan could provide, it doesn't require you to be a fully qualified network engineer. The first step here is to keep the attention of the IT professional by providing detailed design documentation. By adding a network design to your overall project design, the IT professional will be able to clearly see the type of environment he needs to provide you with to get the job done properly. And you don't even need to start from scratch. Head over to the Network Designs Basic course in the System Design section of Academy, and you'll find a wealth of useful downloads to get you going really quickly.
Security is a main concern for any IT professional, but this concern is unnecessary because all SDVoE devices encrypt their video with AES 128-bit encryption, regardless of whether or not the content was protected on the HDMI link. Many SDVoE controllers also feature dual LAN capability, which allow them to be connected to two separate networks, enabling remote access while protecting the main network which has all the endpoints connected to it. And IT professionals can easily make provision for remotely accessing an SDVoE system by applying any access control protocol they prefer. Check out the Layer 3 So That's Where It Lives course on the networking section of Academy, as this will help you understand the basics of local area networks.
Okay, so here are some important points to consider when discussing this with your IT team. IGMP v2 support is a requirement for SDVoE networks. Every managed 10 gig switch on the market offers this capability, but it cannot be assumed that an existing network will be configured for IGMP support. This could lead to major trouble if your IT department isn't prepared ahead of time. Nobody likes surprises, at least of all network admins. SDVoE video streams will be multiple gigabits per second IGMP streams, so making sure that unregistered multicast packets are dropped by your switch is a wise move, and this is usually dealt with by a simple setting on the switch. Device discovery uses low bandwidth broadcast packets, so in order for it to work, the controller needs to share a broadcast domain with the endpoints. The simplest way to achieve this is to ensure the SDVoE controller and endpoints are all on the same LAN or VLAN. More complex solutions can be applied, but this is where the IT professional can help. And once he understands how your technology works, he'll be far more receptive to helping you.
If a network cannot provide enough bandwidth, then it shouldn't be considered for video distribution. For example, if the IT professionals are using 1 gig for their data, they really won't be impressed by you piling a 990 megabit MJPEG stream onto it. Remember, pixel perfect can often mean the end of IT traffic. AV over IT is not future-proofing. Take a look at the IT over AV course in the networking section to better understand how to position this to the IT team.
So, if the IT professionals are happy that your video will not compromise their existing data network in relation to bandwidth or security, and they understand the topology that you intend to install clearly, then they will be far more receptive to supporting your requirements. Remember, if your client requires a reliable, scalable, cost-effective video distribution system which matches the performance of the matrix switch, the only solution that you can offer which meets this scope is software-defined video over Ethernet. Being an AV professional who works alongside an IT professional is old news. The future is true convergence of AV and IT, and SDVoE is the only real way to achieve this.